Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Dating After Divorce podcast. I have a treat for you guys today. Oh my gosh, I'm very excited to introduce you to my daughter. Marie Tagbo is here in the house to spill all of the Gen Z dating tips, tricks, stories. All of the things. So I'm just so proud, you guys, to introduce my daughter. Marie Tagbo is a filmmaker, actress. She's a YouTuber. She is a student. And I'm just going to say she's at NYU because we were just talking about how whether that was a flex or not. I don't know. I consider it a flex. So I'm going to say it. But Marie, thank you for joining me and my listeners on the podcast today. Welcome. Please tell them who you are, what you do, a little bit about yourself.
So first of all, such a nice intro. I haven't heard you. I need to speak about me more like this,
Like this, I do, behind your back, like a good Nigerian mother.
Exactly. That's the thing about African parents, like to your face, like, what do you, not really, you're not like that. But I feel like,
We don't do it enough. I don't think any of us, tell you enough how proud we are of you. So I am proud of you.
That's so nice. But yeah, literally, like you said, I do a lot of work. I make up films, I write, I act in a lot of movies. I am not divorced, and so I hope that's okay for you guys listening.
Thankfully, I'm so glad you're not divorced.
I mean, honestly, like the way you talk about divorce, I feel like has shifted how I think about divorce, because I think growing up, seeing you and my dad married, I always thought that marriage was the end goal regardless. And now I'm kind of learned that like divorce can just be a chapter in your life, and it can just be a learning experience as well. And so I feel like if I were to get divorced, I wouldn't feel a lot of the shame that I know a lot of kids are anxious about feeling, which is kind of comforting.
Yeah. And marriage was the end goal for myself, a lot of my listeners, a lot of people my age, my generation. Marriage was like, all right, that was the goal. If once you got in there, you were like, you've made it. And then we got in there and it was like, wait, what?
Yeah, like I see a lot of people making fun. Oh, Kim Kardashian. Okay, this is not me being a fan of Kim Kardashian or whatever, but they're like, oh, this is her third marriage, and they look at it as if she failed. But I think each marriage for her has been more and more successful. You learn more and more things. As long as we're here and like you as a person still exists, like we shouldn't be. I was also thinking about this. This is Sex and the City episode, and she talks about this, how when you get married, you're given all these gifts. And when you have a baby, you're given all these gifts. So I feel like women, you get this message constantly that you are at your most valuable when you are married with children,
Yes.
and so we can kind of get our worth from these external factors. And she was like, no, dang it, like I want to have a singles party. Like I want to have singles, give me a shower for being single.
I agree. Like a lot of our worth, and and I don't know if I told you, I'm taking a class in feminist coaching.
You didn't tell me.
Really opening my eyes to like, oh my God, there's just so much conditioning and programming that as women we're giving, like you said, that our worth, we're at our most valuable when we are of value to a man in a relationship, in relationships to our parents and our children and the world, when we are in service, whether by choice or not, in the service that we have been told or someone else tells us to do. And I'm like, wait. And it's just unraveling all of that has been definitely a journey. So, all right. But we want to talk about you and dating. I want to learn, because we haven't talked a lot. I mean, we've kind of talked about dating, but like you've really formed your own philosophy around dating. And, I feel like you've just really looked at it and been very thoughtful and gone on a journey for yourself. And so I want you to share with the listeners. You're currently at a stage now where you've taken a break. How long has the break been?
Yeah, so the break started in like literally January 1st. I was like, I'm deleting all of my apps. And I think the reason for that was because dating wasn't fun anymore. I think at first I'd gone into it with little to none expectations. I think that's something I've learned from you. And also just like I don't want to feel like I have to be held to one relationship. So I went to every single relationship saying I only wanted casual relationships. I only wanted casual things. And then I realized I was starting to feel really unfulfilled, kind of downtrodden. And I also realized that so much of my thinking and brain power went to dating, and I don't think that's how
Mm.
it's supposed to be. I mean, I don't like the adage like you'll get it when you're least expecting it, because who's not expecting love? We all want to be loved at any moment in time, every moment
Like
in time.
when I decided not to think about a partner, then he showed up. I'm like, listen, I was thinking about my partner. Like I
Yeah.
wasn't like in the place where I was like obsessed with it. I really didn't expect him to come from where we live. We live in Missouri. But I was like, I'm a practice until he shows up. And so
Mm.
it was more like I was still dating and I was still purposeful about it, but I wasn't attached to like anyone I met being the one. And I think that's kind of what you're trying to describe.
Yeah, exactly. And I realized I started to become overly hurt or sad when they weren't the one, or become like discouraged. And I realized that I was practicing these unhealthy feelings about myself. And so I decided to step back, because, I feel like there's a lot of areas that I have self-awareness in, but I realize like I'm feeling like there's something off here, like what's going on. And so taking my break has really allowed me to step back and be like, wow, as much as I have avoided relationships and as much as I see myself as like that independent girl, I'm actually really obsessed with the idea of relationship. And it's
Mm,
coming from an unmet need that I have had probably since childhood, of like a father figure, a man figure, that kind of thing. And also at the same time, that there's different attachment styles, right? So you have like
mm,
avoidant, you have like disorganized attachment is kind of like what I have, where you're entering into relationships, but you're fearful. You're always afraid that you're not doing enough. And so,
mm,
all in all, I found that in every single relationship or crush or interest I had, I felt like I just wasn't doing enough. And
mm.
if there's all these things are ending up with this result, it has to be me in a way. And so, being able to step back and be like, allow myself to feel the pain of wanting someone, like I think was using constant casual dating as a way of covering up that fear of like I really want an intimate relationship, and yet I really fear an intimate relationship. And then it allowed
Mm,
me to realize, I mean, I crave an intimate relationship. How many intimate relationships with my friends do I have? And I realized
mhm,
I've closed myself off a lot to a lot of my friends. I kind of go out once every 2 weeks. I use convenient friendships. My friends have to beg me to come out, and
mm,
so that's more of something that I have to, heal within myself. And it's allowed me to see men with a new clarity, when you're
mhm.
going up, when you're meeting men without like, can something happen here? I'm able to just observe them and who they
Yeah.
are as people.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned like looking at men. I still want to touch on the friendships part because that's huge.
Yeah.
So repeating that, but on the men's side, it's not so much that women objectify men in the same way men objectify women, but I
Yes.
have noticed with my clients that
Yes.
like there is a way that you start to process men as like
Mm,
potential partners rather than human beings.
so that is, you nailed it. This feels like therapy because I really was, and I realized the reason I realized um, this was because I was looking at every single guy, right? Like if
Mm,
any guy could potentially give me a chance, give me a chance. That's not how I really thought of it, but I could picture myself with every single guy. I was looking for, the first thing I would think of is, does he like me? And when I found out he
mhm,
didn't like me, then I could ease into friendship. But I put that romance first, and I wasn't
mm,
even seeing the guys as people. And this also reflected to the guys that I wasn't interested in. The guys I wasn't interested in, I was so worried about them liking me that I would maybe give them a chance or whatever, instead of being
mm,
objective and be like, we wouldn't work out, and it's better
mhm,
for me and for him if I'm honest with myself about that and see him as a human being. And this is what I'm also realizing as well, like, men have agency. Men get to choose and say who they're not interested in as well,
yes,
and
yes.
that's something I didn't really see.
Yeah, and it's turned into this thing where, and I don't know if you're a Gen Z, so my generation is Generation X. And I don't know if it's the same thing with you guys, but like I hear it a lot with women my age where it's like these men on these apps and these men this, and then men don't want commitment.
Yeah,
And I'm like,
yeah,
these are human beings. Now, they may not be
yeah,
right for you, or there may be
right,
some who don't want commitment, but when you lump them all together and kind of sort of label them because you're having this particular experience, it does not
yeah.
serve the human race and does not serve the woman in particular in her journey.
And that is something I think Gen Z, it's interesting you talk about Gen Z because we have, if you go on TikTok, there's a lot of like rhetoric that people might call misandrist,
Sandra,
I think.
yeah.
Yeah, which I understand it because these are coming from, women as a whole. We've experienced a trauma,
Mm-hmm.
from the way that the patriarchy enacts violence and
Mm-hmm.
objectification on us every single day. And so when women are like all men, yes, I totally get it. But I've also had to like stop myself from going down that path because I have to, when I look around and observe, some of my friends are with really good guys. Some of my friends are with guys
Mm-hmm.
who treat them well. And so it's not fair to myself to not allow myself to have that experience, because all
Yeah.
men must be awful. That's not true. My
Yeah.
brother's a good person. My
Mm-hmm.
stepdad's a good person, and so
Yeah,
I've really,
there are good men in the world. And then there's also the flip side where women will say, well, there are good men in the world, and then they give men who are not good for them a chance. But it's sort of
yeah,
like we
yep,
have to
yep,
learn to step out of that black and white thinking
yeah,
and be
that's so
like,
true.
the ability to just see the world as it is. There's all kinds of people, and being
Yeah,
able to be savvy and being able to be accepting of whatever a person brings. So if a person comes and they are narcissistic, it'd be like, oh, well, that's all right. That's okay. It's not, I'm not signing up for that, but it's okay
yeah,
that you're who you are. I don't have to like freak out that there are narcissists in the world because there will always be.
yeah,
And then I also don't have to like be angry that I ran into one guy in the lineup that wasn't for me, or that wasn't the right person, or that didn't, show up right on the first date. It doesn't have anything to do with the fact that then there are these other guys. And I don't know if you and I ever talked about this, but I teach this to my clients now. Is I went, because my childhood, not a lot of great guys,
right,
definitely not in my first marriage. So I went on this scavenger hunt because I
yeah,
literally did not see good guys in the world. I was like, I don't even know what does this look like again?
yeah.
How do good guys behave? And then I started looking through the world at work, in my friends' husbands, and sort of writing down the characteristics that I saw that like, but you have to train your brain to do it.
I started doing that. I started a list of all
Nice.
the guys. Let me show you. If you guys can't see this on the podcast, but I was literally just doing this. And the reason I'm trying to think about the reason I started, because I really just made this list super recently, is because I realized that this is what it is. So I watch a lot of like couples on
Mm-hmm.
TikTok. I just think it's so fun. And there's this one couple who they said that, their initial conversations were about each other's values. And so it made me
Mm,
realize, I'm so focused on compatibility, attraction, because I think it's something a lot of young people are interested in, but like, who is their character? Like, who are they outside of you? And I think a
mm,
lot of girls look at, oh, well, he's friendly to me, he's nice to me, etc., etc. But like, and I know this sounds like a big girl word, but what are like his values? Like, do you think he's
mm-hmm,
like a guy of integrity? Like, I mean, these words are really big, but what that kind of
mm-hmm,
means is like, do you think he's nice to his friends? Do you think he
mm-hmm.
helps his friends out when they need something? Do you think he tells the truth most of the time? Like things that he would do outside of you, do you think he
Yeah.
has those qualities? You know,
Does he treat
because like,
children well?
yeah, does he
You
treat like
know,
wait stuff?
yeah.
And often like the girls I see in happy relationships, um, they're not, this is another thing, like they're not like the crazy hottest. I mean, some of them are like, I think all girls are hot, but they're not like always supermodels with like to
Mm-hmm,
the tens. Like, you know what I mean? There are a lot of girls who have just, in a way, not settled, and
mm-hmm.
and and gotten, some really really sweet guys. So what is, and who do all of these things? Let me show you my list before I forget. It's where is it? So it's, I have like Trevor Noah on here, I think.
Oh my gosh, yes. That
I
is
think,
such a good for you. That is a nice long list. I
thank
love it. And it
you.
looks like you wrote their name and then like what you saw in them as being good
Yeah.
characteristics. Yeah, that's excellent.
The other reason I did this was because I wanted to write down the things that because I think what might happen, I don't know if with your clients, but we kind of, if you've had several bad guys in a row, you start to feel like there's something wrong with you, you know? And so
Mm,
trying to take these guys as learning, or when you're feeling really sad over someone who's your ex, or you've been in a relationship with, like what qualities did they have that you feel like were really good,
mhm.
that maybe they treated you in a different way. So I try to put guys on here who made me happy at some point, even if I am not in a relationship with them or never will be or can't anymore.
Yeah, yeah, and you can act. And there was one guy that I dated, and he wasn't looking for a commitment or anything, but he was very intellectual. He read a lot of books. He was always, I don't know how he did. He was always putting books in my Kindle. I'm like, dude, how are you putting these books? Like, I'm like, are you some kind of hacker? Like, yeah, open up your Kindle. I put a couple of books in there.
Oh,
And
that's sweet.
it was sweet. It was one of the few sweet things about it. He didn't
Oh,
have a lot of
oh
sweet things,
no, he
but he
did
did
have that
have
though.
that.
He did have that.
He did
Great.
have that. And I took that from that brief
Yes.
relationship to be like, I want a guy who's intellectual and who reads books. And oh my God, I landed the guy who reads like the most books. I'm like, can I tear can I tear Kent away from a book? Right?
Yeah. So I have a question about that because I feel like I'm worried about the list being too long. And I'm wondering if there's
Mm,
other women who feel like the list is too long. You know, how can and I know you, because you talked to me about this, how you had a long list as well.
mm-hmm.
And so
It's
how does,
not the length of the list. It is the usefulness of what is on the list.
mm,
So there are some things that some women will have on their list that's not useful for selecting a mate. So for instance, if you have a lot of character traits that help maintain a long-term relationship, if you have 100 of those, that is useful. So if you
mm-hmm,
have kindness and empathy,
mm-hmm,
that's useful. Now if you have height, while that may be good for chemistry and attraction, if you're super specific, that's not useful. So the length of the list is not so much a problem. It's more the quality of the items that you have on the list. Things like the person's job that's not useful. However, their work style is useful. So
mm-hmm,
I definitely wanted someone who was more family oriented. And I didn't want someone who traveled for work a lot. That was just not something that I knew was going to be compatible with the life that I wanted. So I never had a job title in my list, but I did have is home a lot, doesn't travel a lot for work. Like you can be doing whatever.
mm-hmm.
I don't care what you're doing, and then I also had loves their work because I did not
Mm-hmm.
want someone who hated their job and was going to bring that energy energy home at the end of the day. I had things like good with young people because I had, you guys and you were teenagers. So that was a quality that I wanted. But I didn't necessarily say has young kids. A lot of women will be like, oh, they will conflate the person having kids,
Mm,
their kids' age, as being equal to that person being a good
right,
dad or good with young
right.
people. So I think it's just really thinking through how useful those items are that makes the difference. The longer the list, the better,
Okay.
in my
Because
opinion.
I think I'm told a lot, oh, that's, you're being really picky. And then I realized the other day, so I think I told you this story. I'm scared to tell this story because I think it's, but like I met this guy who like basically had everything on my list. Well, I thought was everything on my list. Well, which was basically list, let's say, nice, the things he had, nice,
Mm-hmm.
intellectual, kind of like, I like a guy who's very um, self aware,
Mm-hmm.
which is like nice, and self aware. I really enjoy philosophical, those sorts of things. And then I like found out from a friend, that basically his room's a mess. He like super like gross, and he has a lot of like behaviors that are kind of like fetishizy to women, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And that those sorts of things, those sorts of things get me. And so I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, well, did I miss a sign? Did I miss a sign? And then I was basically just like, one thing that I think is really helpful for things that you might not know about someone right away is consistency, right? Because if
Mhm.
someone is consistent in showing up in your life, then you'll get to know those traits about them, and you'll
Yeah.
get to know about who they are. So like I was like, oh, I didn't know. Well, he wasn't really consistent. Like he showed interest once and then stopped showing up,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
So you were right on track. There's no way, and I hear this is where my clients do that is they try to be too certain too soon.
mm,
Right? Like, oh, he meets all of this criteria, so then I'm certain that I know everything about this person. I like to think of other people. I'm learning to see other humans as like a whole universe. So no
mhm,
matter what I know, there's so much that I don't know. And that helps me stay curious and helps me stay observing and not making assumptions about who the person is. I will have clients who will like look at a guy's profile and they
mhm,
will let their brain fill in the gaps.
yeah,
Oh, I don't know, I'm a social worker. He's a social worker. Oh my God, we're compatible.
right,
It's like, no, you don't know what's going on over there. He might be a social worker who hasn't had a job in 20 years. Like, don't let your
yeah,
brain fill in the gaps. And then the other thing with that is uh, there is an integration of if a person is truly interested and you're truly interested, there's a natural integration of your lives that will start to
mm,
happen. And
yeah,
that doesn't mean that you're together and perfect now. It just means this is now the next level of opportunity to know what this person is really like. And it sounds like you didn't have that with this person. Like you guys
yeah.
never really had a relationship. So of course you didn't know all that.
Of course I didn't know. No, and it's really interesting. That's what you know, I think this is where the whole fear of intimacy thing comes in, da 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 da. Because then I was really, as I'm exploring new friendships and things like that, I'm beginning to, especially with guys, it's letting me know how can I open myself up to someone to get to know more about their life without putting pressure to stay with
Mm-hmm.
them forever. I think that's what would come up. So, for example, there's this guy. I don't think I've told you this story, we're not I haven't been asked on a date or whatever, but he's definitely tried to like ask to hang out. We've hung out a couple of times. Um, but I think typically, like I find him attractive. I think he's really nice. Typically, I this is what happens because if I find someone attractive and I think they're nice and I'm looking to date, I'm immediately looking for how soon is he messaging me? When is he
Mm,
making this next thing happen? And then I'm trying to shave off my list to make things better. So I'm like, okay,
mm,
well, he's not quite as empathetic as I would like, but he's
mm,
here and he's nice or whatever. So now I'm like, because I'm not dating, there's not this pressure. I can kind of just be like, oh, this is interesting. I wonder if he's as empathetic as I would want in a partner. And I can kind of just
mm-hmm.
like watch him and see why might I say no to someone? Why might I say yes to someone? Now, I don't the way I'm talking about this, I don't think all of my friends are this way. Like I talk to a lot of my friends and um some of them are a lot more bold. Some of them are a lot
Mm-hmm.
more laid back than I am. Some of them just don't date at all. So I feel like this is my now unique approach. Because I have another friend who, like, the second they see someone who they feel very strongly is compatible, like, they'll try to get to know them right away and, like, let's
Mm-hmm.
see where this can go. And that also works to an extent as well. But they're also
Yeah,
very confident.
I think so. I think in your age, and this is an assumption that I'm making, theory that I have, I a lot of different ways will work.
Mm.
Just because the pool is numbers wise is bigger, you guys are on a campus, basically everybody's single.
Yep.
So
Yep.
kind of like a lot of different ways of approaching it will work to meet someone. The question is the person you end up with or end up
Right.
coupling up with, are they a
Yeah.
good person?
Yeah.
Have you created a match that is actually healthy and fulfilling and nourishing for the both of you, or at least for you? Like,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so that's the challenge. And a lot, when I look back at my campus days and people, who were dating, people who were, getting married, my relationship, it was easy to, if you were bold, it was really easy to like pick your guy and be like, I wasn't so
Mm.
much on one of the bold ones. I was more, I was more open. Like I had several people who were like interested, but I had my idea of what a good partner was not right. So then I ended up like I studied engineering. So like I literally had like there were all these guys, but because of my own childhood, my emotional imprint was definitely for I was primed to make a mistake. It was just gonna happen. But it wasn't because there weren't good guys around. So when I'm thinking back, I would say like on campus, almost any guy is available to you. Any type of guy is available. And if you're really bold, you can go right for the guy. But if you have an emotional imprint that's unhealthy, then you might be going right for the guy that's the wrong guy, right? If you're laid back, that can be, because I'm thinking about some people who are like super laid back. And I think, but even then, even those people got people who dated them, who asked them out, but, sometimes it was their friends who were like getting in the way. I have a really good friend who got divorced recently, and she learned after she had gotten married to the wrong guy that there was a guy that she was really attracted to and was really attracted to. He was a really good guy, but her friend who knew the both of them would not connect them. Like literally, the guy said, "Give her my number.
Wow.
I want to get to know your friend." And the in-between friend was like, no, she just did not, so those things do happen on campus as well. I think those happen more at your age than they do like after 40. So those are kind of things to watch out for is, do you have a radar that lines up with a guy who is healthy? Who's thinking about picking a healthy guy at 20? It's just...
What I notice is that my friends who are in really healthy relationships, they really are the friends who put themselves first. So they'll kind of expect automatically that the guy will put them first. And for some of them, this was not like an easy journey. And this is why I've really loved the Black like it girl movement, because even though it has problems in connection to capitalism and material consumerism, all of those things, it's really taught that like we as Black women should always be prioritizing ourselves, putting ourselves first, treating ourselves like an girl, even when we don't feel like it. And so, one of my friends should be like, I'm going to come back here and my boyfriend's going to pay for it, or she'll be like, my boyfriend bought me perfume that he didn't have money to spend, but he like bought it, and like that sort of thing. And I'm like, I think going back to that emotional imprinting, like those are things that I was afraid to ask, and I think I was afraid to put myself first. This is what it is. I realized I was afraid to put myself first in my relationships because I was afraid, and the fear was just there that the guy was going to leave. And so I was like, if I know I'm at my most charismatic, attractive, blah, 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 blah. If I put him first constantly and adjust myself to him, whoever he is. So if, let's say I don't like him, but he's interested, well, I'll spend time with him. I do like him. He treats me badly. I'll, try to change him. And what I've realized is that I get hurt either way, right? Like it's not going to keep someone there. So in the end, it's really important that I still have myself and I still have my integrity. Like I'm still acting as myself always, regardless of the guy.
Yeah, 100%. My clients face the same thing. Like literally that scenario happens at our age too. And I think what I try to show them is, listen, you won't recognize the guy who's going to treat you well if you don't know what it feels like to be treated well. Like literally, you have to feel it in your body. You have to treat yourself so well and feel that in your body. And then when someone does the same thing or similar things or approaches you with that same energy, you're like, oh, wow, this sounds familiar. I feel like I'm being treated like I treat myself. Like this is like my homeostasis. Like it's like my level. It's my level of experience. Yeah.
This is something really profound that I've been learning recently, is that we are constantly taught that self-love and getting to know yourself and improving your self-esteem happens with yourself, right? So you're taught, go on solo dates, go on therapy, blah, 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 blah. But I've realized the times that I've experienced the most self-growth and most growth in my confidence is when I found that love from my community. When I was in a community that showed me a lot of love. So for example, my online high school, like every time I went there, I showed me a lot of love. And the reason was because they were fighting for me to see myself the way they saw me. So for example, my Black friends now, a guy who comes up to me who's not great, right? My white friends, oh girl, yeah, he's dating. Oh, yay, keep cuckoo with him. It's cute. My black friends will be like, girl, what? Look at you. You are that. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so being told how to and being shown love from your
Mm-hmm.
community, um, they will really pick you up and show you where you can truly aim from. Like, all right, girl, this is how you act. This is how you hold yourself to the standard. Here's how you like.
Mm-hmm.
My black girlfriends have challenged me so much to really respect myself. Because if you're with a
Mm-hmm.
group of community who won't respect yourself, you won't know that the guy you're with isn't great because they won't tell
Yeah.
you. So you need to be with people who
Yeah.
will treat you that way and will help you feel that way about yourself and treat you how you should be treated as well.
Oh, that is so, so good. No, that's so good. And I like when I look back at the friends I had around me in my
Mm-hmm.
first marriage, I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, no, they looked at me like that behavior because I did confide in them, but I
Yeah.
realize now that they thought I just deserved what was happening. Both
Yeah.
white and black friends, interestingly.
Mhm.
Like I have
Right.
literally like just shipped that whole entourage of
Yeah.
life out, those people out of my life. I'm like, oh,
Uh-huh.
okay, you thought this was what was supposed to be happening to me. Okay, no, let's just not do
Right.
that anymore.
Right. And to be fair, I think in the Black community and in Christian communities, and I was just talking about this on my own social media, we're often taught that the Bible is used to justify a lot of mistreatment, and it's also
Mm-hmm.
used to deny a woman her agency, right? So we're seeing the Kim and Kanye situation. Kanye is going, devil is tearing my family apart, Jesus bring it back together, right? So the what the wife is doing is the devil,
Is the
and what
devil.
and the, he is the spokesperson for Jesus, right? So not only is it society, your friends, it's like religion, your
Mm-hmm.
spirituality, because your spirituality is how you know you're not alone. So if you're being told God is going to abandon you if you don't
Mm-hmm.
stay with this person, you're like, I'm going to stay with
Yeah.
this person.
Yeah. Well, and also even the fear of the loss of community,
Yeah,
right? Because if the
definitely.
whole community is saying, hey, we don't approve of anything other than staying, then it's
Right.
like, oh, wow, I'm just going to be floating off by myself if
Hmm.
I do anything different.
Yeah, and I think we have, so for example, CR was a really good community as well. It was one of the first communities I was like, oh, things would happen at my racist school or whatever, and they'd be like, no, we should drop that friend. And it just things that never occurred to me,
Mm-hmm.
and so I realized so I'll do this thing where I'll show my friends. I'm just now starting to talk to my friends about the guys I talk to, and I'll show them a picture and they'll be like, girl, what was happening? Were you sick? Did you not have your contacts in yet?
You
Oh,
did that to me when I was dating. There was this one guy I was dating.
really?
Like
I
I
don't
never,
remember
I,
this.
I really, I avoided bringing any of them home
Oh
until I
my
was
goodness.
sure. So you never met them, but I would show you pictures. Like every once in a while, I'd be like, "Oh, what do you think?" And you'd be like, "Mom."
I don't remember this at all.
I remember you'd be like, "He's not cute, Mom."
Wow. So did I say anything about Ken? Did I?
No, I don't remember you saying anything. I don't even know how much I showed you or told you until
Yeah.
you met him.
I don't think you told me much.
No, you probably, I think I probably would had showed you pictures before you met
Probably.
him, but I don't remember you saying anything. You didn't say much about him so much, which was, I took that as like
That's a
positive
sad.
because all the other guys, you had
Yeah.
looked at their pictures and were like, it's a no, sorry. Like, you didn't even ask. And I'm like, no, but he's nice. You'd be like, he's no.
No, but it's kind of what we do to ourselves too. And I know a lot of what you're thinking about is like, it's not that you want realistic standards for your clients and things like that. But what I've realized is that we think our standards are that high, and then a
Mm-hmm.
mediocre guy comes and we drop even the standards that we had. And so,
Mm-hmm.
we
Mm-hmm.
do need reminders of like what we really, really want, because we're like, oh, this is good enough. This is a shade of
Right.
this is good enough.
Right. Good enough is not good enough.
Yeah.
Like that really is true. Like good enough is not good enough. And the way I've sort of explained it to my clients is like, that's actually what happened even in my first marriage was like, okay, you have sort of like, if you say you have a spectrum from 0 to 10, and what you've experienced is like a 2, which my childhood would have been like a 2. So then I thought like a 3 or a 3.5 was like amazing compared to my
Mm,
childhood. But where I
right.
was really going was a 10. And I
Yeah.
didn't realize that, oh, there was just still so much of a journey or so much of a requirement for a healthy partner between 3 and 10.
I think it's really important that we know that you can truly have everything that you want. And
Mm-hmm.
I think, for example, with casual dating and all of these things, you're constantly shown people who are like, and I think that's where I got discouraged and a lot. Some people can get discouraged is, I've seen every single guy out there. You feel like you've
Mm-hmm.
seen all them all,
Mm-hmm.
and they haven't given me what I want. Um, and then it's funny. I was just watching Love Is Blind season 2, and you see some people who get married, they're happy, and then you see some people who did the marriage process, thought they found something they wanted, and then leave at the altar and don't actually get legally married. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm sure for them, they're kind of back on that wheel. And so I think it's also really important for us all to understand, like, whether you're like 20 or you're 35 or you're like older, like, we're all getting on that wheel, sort of. It's not gonna
Right. And I think
happen.
we can normalize that. It doesn't mean anything
Exactly.
about you that you are
Yeah,
looking for your life partner.
absolutely.
There is
Yeah,
nothing wrong with you because you're like, you know what? I want a person. I want a person. I want my person.
absolutely.
I'm not desperate, but I do want my person. It's like nothing. And women are shamed for like wanting that. When was the last time you
Yeah.
saw a guy being labeled desperate because he was dating?
Yeah. No,
Like,
absolutely. No, like we're supposed to make it look effortless. We're supposed to make it look easy. We're supposed to, not want it. It's supposed to just come to us. And this is what I'm also been reading like Bell Hooks, and she talks about this. Like we're not taught that love is a skill, and we
mm-hmm,
need to practice it in all areas of our lives. And so she's very much about
mm-hmm,
practice divine love, your spiritual practice self-love, practice community love, and practice love with your partner, and defining and being
yeah,
very intentional about what that looks like. um,
that's so good.
yeah, it's like you something you acquire, and some people are more advanced with the skill than others because some people had it modeled for them, some people didn't have it modeled for them, some people who were abandoned by people who were supposed to model it for them, so they
Mm-hmm.
have to kind of observe and learn, and it's not something that necessarily, and we think that it's supposed to be an autumn. Even children don't know how to love right away. They might know what love
Mm,
feels like, but they don't know what love is. You ask a child to describe love, he's going to say getting a toy that I want, or maybe
mm,
being excited to see my parents, and that's a sliver of what love is. But love grows and it's multidimensional. um
mm-hmm.
and it's
Yeah.
really important to know that.
So let's talk about apps because you said like
Yes,
when
yes,
people are on the apps and it looks like I've seen all the guys. First of all,
yes.
ladies, you have not seen all the guys. Just because you have swiped through everyone on your queue and you're
No,
seeing the same guys on all three apps that you're on does not mean you have seen all the men. Like
right.
that is like a 0.0000% of the men that are available to you that you see on the app. So I teach my clients to date offline and online. But
Okay.
tell me your thoughts about the apps. What happens on the apps?
Okay, so apps, right? So if you're a straight woman, there's going to be 3 apps you're going to use. Tinder is like everybody, okay? So Tinder's a mix. Tinder, you have the hookups, you have the polyamorous couples, you have people looking for long-term relationships. There is a lot of hookup on Tinder, but that's like I also see tons of stories of people, especially like if you're like slightly older, meeting just about to delete Tinder, swiping on Tinder, meeting their match. So like there are people who
Mm-hmm.
get married off of Tinder.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, my business coach met her husband on Tinder, and she's about to have a
oh,
baby, and everybody's so beautiful and rich and amazing.
oh, no, literally, and I think it's become less embarrassing now. I think some people still feel embarrassed by it, but it's like no, absolutely. You have your So then you have Bumble, and Bumble. Personally, I think the guys are hotter on Bumble. I don't know what it is, but Bumble has a strange algorithm because they're trying to get you addicted to the app. I mean, all apps are trying to get you addicted, but Bumble is really trying to get you to stay on, to be engaged. So they'll show you like all the great matches right off the bat. I know quite a few. I feel like Bumble was one of the best for like dates with guys I was actually interested in. Um, it's cool. It was probably my least. No, I mean, I think I'm saying all these from favorite to least favorite. Hinge is the most intensive app. You have to like fill in all these prompts, be very specific.
Mm.
people don't use Hinge as, I would say it's really hard depending, because I've seen like a tons of guys on Hinge. I would say Hinge selection of guys is a little bit uglier. They're not as cute. Okay, it's more about the personality on Hinge. Because especially like we always have a joke. Like we'll be like, guys who like you on Hinge, and guys will say this too, like the people who like you on Hinge, you're like, oh, like why would you like me? Why would you like me? It is, but I'm sure someone's saying that about everybody. But Hinge is like the one that I've seen the most long-term success of my longest, my two longest situationships, whatever, were both with guys off of Hinge, and the guys there can be a little bit more conversational. They're often ready to date right off the bat to meet up. I think it's kind of been a similar experience for a lot of my friends. A lot of people do get bored by it, or not bored by it, like annoyed by it, because the questions are so intensive, and you run out of likes kind of quickly.
Yeah. So, and it's interesting. Let me ask you this. So, like, when you guys talk about, because the way I look at apps is slightly different. And
Okay.
the way you talk about it is the way my clients talk about it.
Okay.
My clients talk about it like, oh, well, the guys on this app are this way, and the guys on that
Yeah.
app are this. And my thought is like, who cares about the guys and how
Yeah.
they are? Like, literally, the only thing that matters is that you stay on the app and you just have this very neutral process until you meet your guy.
I think that's fair. I think what it is Tinder is annoying because you get so many matches, which is great for your ego. So you're kind of on a high. And then there are constant like hook up, requests to hook up. So it's like for me, for my peace of mind, I just stuck with like Hinge because it's like the least hook-up-y app. Like guys aren't gonna really put in all that work if they wanna, if they wanna just hook up with you, they're gonna go for Tinder. There is more, I think, so I think that can just kind of be a little bit discouraging. And then the way guys talk on Tinder can just be kind of asshole. You don't want to get like harassed or anything like that. So I think personally, I gravitate towards apps with more serious, because people, it's so easy to just enter Tinder and just do whatever on that app.
Yeah. I mean, and I can see that, like, if you're in it, it's really easy to sort of take on the experience of the app.
Right.
I try to teach my clients to sort of like work with their brain so that they are on the app, but they're not taking on an emotional experience from what's happening on the app. Most of my clients do not use Tinder. Like, I mean, I have one or two who have been like, yeah, they use Tinder, but most of them, I would say 95% of my clients are not fans of Tinder.
Yeah.
So, and I guess that's why, but here's the thing, even that experience gets taken to like, even an app like Bumble. Do you ever find that like, you're able to like, just sort of shift your mind to look at the app as more neutral than like, I'm having this experience on this app and it's like, it's literally just pixels on a screen?
I think when I was first like really enjoying it, I used it more as like a group activity. So like my friends would make profiles, we'll swipe, we'll see who each other's talking to. It'll be really fun. You kind of are like kind of laughing at whoever is messaging you, and you're just kind of being silly with it. So it's kind of like a conversation topic as well, which can be really fun. I think when I started to actually want something a little bit deeper, I started to look at what sort of platform is going to be best for me and how can I quickly kind of like get rid of the people I'm not interested in. So that's when I gravitated more towards Bumble and Hinge, because Hinge specifically as well, I think the algorithm is really interested in showing you guys that you are interested in. So like there's so many guys and who would be interested in you. So there's so many guys who you could see, but I noticed that the more I used it, the more I engaged with certain types of users, it was better at suggesting guys who I could actually see myself being compatible with. So I think like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of my dates, which is like most of my dates. I think most of my dates came from Hinge. I think I had a couple last year that might have come from Bumble, but most of them came from Hinge, and it's because I found myself having real conversations. The personalities on there, and a certain type of personality just gravitates towards Hinge that I click with more of. However, I think if I were to go back, when I do go back on dating apps, especially if I'm studying abroad or whatever, I'm 100% going to, kind of bring back Tinder, just as like I've listened to a lot more people tell their own stories about yeah, Tinder was a hookup app, da, 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 I was about to delete it, and then I met this person. And so I think it just
Right.
reminded that there are people who are looking for,
Yeah, it's sort of that generalization, because I think
yeah,
that happens a lot in the dating world. I'm like, seriously, people, we keep, like, oh, this is it's sort of like Tinder is a hookup app. Yes,
hmm,
hookups happen on Tinder. The interesting thing is that hookups happen on all of the apps.
that's true.
And so saying Tinder is a hookup app almost tricks your brain into thinking that Bumble isn't, that there are no guys on Bumble looking for a hookup. And that's, I'm always trying to like say, like, just keep everything neutral and
Hmm.
keep moving forward instead of like, oh, this is for this and that is for that. Because in truth, we don't know.
I do think it's safe to say that Tinder has a lot more guys who are just interested
Yes.
in like messing around.
Yeah, that's 100%, 100%. Okay. But I find that it's the thinking, not so much that
Mm,
that's not true at all, but the thinking gets moved into like, oh, all the guys on the apps are terrible. There are no good
hmm.
guys on the apps. So I'll hear a client
Right,
say,
right.
my
That's
guy would not be on an app.
right.
And there's
Yeah,
evidence, yes,
yeah.
that there's all these guys that are not appropriate for you. But what
Right,
we ignore is that there's also evidence that there are good guys on the apps, because all of us
right,
have friends who
right.
have met their soulmates on the app. So just kind of like thinking about that a little bit. So then what about dating in person? Like meeting people through your friends or blind dates or getting
Yeah,
introduced?
I feel like this is become my like favorite way of meeting guys. I think that
Mm-hmm.
like clubs would probably be like last on the list. I think like
Mm-hmm.
just because again like the optimization like places where people are desperate to meet other people, this probably isn't the best place.
Yeah.
um but I've found that meeting guys through other people have been my favorite ways to meet guys, because
Mm-hmm.
not only are they kind of they just have a context to them that's really nice. And so for example, I often meet guys when I'm out with friends, hanging out with friends. They'll bring a guy friend, and then you meet them, at a like apartment, or just running into them, and then maybe you'll
Mm-hmm.
like exchange contact information. um and I think that's also how a lot of like the guys that I know have met other people. Like there's one guy I know who I it's funny, he didn't meet his girlfriend now through me, but he met her friend group through me.
Mm-hmm.
And so just like I feel like, and then what's so nice about that is a lot of guys on apps, and this is different I think when you're not in college, because you're constantly creating your own community. But if you're
Mm-hmm.
not on a campus with me, it's gonna be very hard for me to see you, very hard for us to spend quality time together, especially if you kind of live far away. So I
Mm-hmm.
really enjoy like, oh, you're in my dorm, you're in the dorm across from me, like
Yeah.
knowing those kinds of people that you're like networked in.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the concept of networked in. And you also have like your campus is huge, right? Like, are there tips and tricks for like meeting, not necessarily on campus, but I'm just trying
Yeah.
to extrapolate to like my sort of like my clients. We do a lot of work on being creative for them to create community
Mm,
or to, because my belief is that everyone's partner is probably no more than two people removed from them at any point. Like
mm,
right now,
that's interesting.
your person, in my theory, is that they're no more than two people removed from you. And my work a lot of times to teach my clients to like see, open your eyes and see, be visible, like show up in a way that expresses who you are, where you're not like invisible when you're interacting with your community.
And I think that's the one thing I haven't done, because NYU is, if you are a woman, it is like a war zone, because the percentage of men and the percentage of attractive men is so small compared to the percentage of beautiful, amazing, hot, straight women and bi women on campus. And
Mm-hmm.
so anytime I've seen an attractive guy, he's surrounded. You know what I mean? Like it's just because it's slim pickings. Because NYU is also a very liberal school, so there's a lot of like of a huge LGBTQ community, which means that like the straight men are typically they are lacking. Like there's like three straight men in my program. in Tish overall,
Interesting.
yeah, in Tish overall, it's fair. Like you have, I'm in tons of classes where there's like two straight guys to like all women.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So it's mainly more like majors outside of my major where I'll meet guys. So or class outside of my major, like gen ed, STEM classes, those sorts of things. And so the thing about that is this like I think if I were showing up more and getting out there more, it's
Mm-hmm.
easier to like meet people in your classes and stuff like that. I have met guys from my classes as well, and I feel like that's been like um, that's how I've met some guys on
Yeah.
campus. But it's like
Yeah.
you gotta really make yourself present, but also in a way, a lot of us have just given up. A lot of us have just like we're gonna find a guy after college because
After
especially as
college. Yeah.
a black woman at a PWI,
Mm,
it's like,
yeah.
you know,
Do you guys have speed dating events on campus?
we have there were like some on Zoom. What we do have is like they used to be, or for example, AAP, which is like the black like this black formal that they're having. I mean,
Oh, have fun.
but like they'll have some events. Um, Overall, no. I think speed dating at NYU is called going to a club or going to parties. Is my guess. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not a fan of like clubs or bars. I have a list of like 101 places that I give my clients to like curate what would work for them. I'm like, listen, everyone dreams of like reaching for the jar of peanut butter in the grocery store at the same time as their soulmate. I'm like, no, we do not meet guys in grocery stores and we do not meet guys in bars. Like it does happen, but it's sort of like there's no filter for the people you meet in those places. Right. And so why would you may as well be on an app if you're going to meet someone at a club or in a bar. Like you may as well just get back on the app. It's not the same thing.
I think I would be open to it. And the only reason is because two of my favorite YouTubers met their husbands at like 19 at a club. Like Patricia
Mm,
Bright, she met her husband. Um, like it was like in London, and he was like a bouncer, and he kind of just like
mm.
carried her off. And then Nikki Glamour, she also met her husband in a club, and it was just kind of like one of those moments where you look at each other. So
Oh.
I think I know clubs are like and icky, but I think and it's funny because he had a kid with Nikki, and her friends were like, no. Her friends were like, do
Mm,
not date this dude. Why would you do with a kid? Like da 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 da. And she was just like, I can just tell he's a good guy. She told me straight off the
mm.
bat that all these things, and so I think that I would definitely be open to meeting a guy at a club. I think what it is that the honesty that like the guys you're going to meet at a club are likely not going to be your happily ever after. So like
Mm-hmm.
you can be open to them, but just like don't expect the peanut butter. Like if it
Yeah.
happens, it's great, but like don't expect it. Maybe.
Right. That makes sense. Like you sort of know the pool you're swimming in. You're like, I'm open, like, I'm curious, but like I'm not gonna go like, yeah, no, that makes sense to just sort of have realistic expectations of who you could meet, but also leaving the door open. My clients call it opening up all the portals. We want to open all the portals because we don't know which
Yeah.
one the person is gonna step through. So you gotta open them online and offline and
I
wherever.
will say that the club has become the place for like when you're like really desperate. You know what I mean? Like like you really want your first kiss
Oh
at
my
college
God,
campus, you really want
no.
your first experience, you just get drunk and like you go to a club and you just let it out. Because I think it's one of those places that if you haven't had success in your classes, you kind of like and then having the validation in person, like on an app, it can feel a
That
little
just
fake. But
sounds sad. Like I've had zero
we've
success.
all we've all been there at a moment. Like I just you know what I mean.
I
Like
don't
no
know,
one
girl.
wants
I
me.
do not know.
No one wants me, but that guy sitting by himself in a bar who's like weird, kind of fratty,
Oh
he wants
God.
me because he's drunk. So life is okay.
That sounds terrible.
And I do know people who like, yeah, they'll just hook up with guys at bars, like that they've met, like they'll be like, yeah, no, and then you see them and say, oh yeah, no, I slept over. But again, it's not long. But then this is what makes me mad about TikTok is that you'll see trends where it's like expecting this to be a one-time hookup because you met at a bar and then they'll show their ring. And
Wow. Yes. I mean, and see, that's always the exception that proves the rule.
Yeah.
And and I I have a lot of thoughts about the conversation around dating on the internet. Because
Mm,
somehow, I guess because there's not much of an education and basically everyone is winging it, so much gets put out there. And a lot of people want to use other people's stories as like a formula. So, oh, I was expecting it to just be a
yeah.
one night hookup. Then I look, we're getting married. And then people are like, oh, a one night hookup can lead to a relationship. It's like, no, no. So it's real. There's really no formula, like 100% for that. At least in my opinion, there's no formula for it. It's not like you got to know yourself, got to know what you're looking for, and you have to like, be super savvy about it. All right, we've talked a long time. Wait.
Yeah. No, I was gonna say, I think, what was I gonna say? I think that's what it was for me, and why I've taken this break from dating is just letting go of the desire for there to be a formula. One YouTuber who I love, again, married couple. I watch a lot of like married couple, like even if their main content isn't married couples, I like to watch them. And she was like, I was like single for 5 years, and then he was the
Mm.
second guy I met. I swiped. She's like, I swiped on everybody on Tinder, like everyone was getting a match. And then, because I think she'd just broken up with a guy after getting back on apps or whatever. She was like, we matched, and then we went to the dog park, and then I think she's like the second day I was like throwing up, and
Mm.
he asked her to be his girlfriend. He was like, "This is probably the worst day I'll ever see you in." Her name's Amber Wallen. If you guys check her out on TikTok, I love her. She was like, this is the worst thing I'll probably ever see you in, and I still like you. So
I love that.
yeah, I think it's really
That
sweet.
is so sweet.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's amazing. I think all of this just tells me that it's not about where you meet the person or how
yeah,
you meet the person. It's about you
hmm,
and the person
yeah,
and the relationship you create between you.
yeah,
So, like, if you are with
absolutely.
someone, whether you met them at a bar or on Tinder or in church,
Right. Yeah,
if you're creating a relationship between you that is not fulfilling, the
yeah,
fact that you met them in the safest, most wonderful place is not going to help you.
very true. That's very true. How do you feel when you're around them? I think what it is it can be hard if you struggle with anxiety and insecurity, because you're like, well, I don't want them to fix me. Maybe this is just my typical anxiety and insecurity, and it can be
Mm,
really hard to differentiate. And I saw this wonderful piece of advice, which is like, when it's anxiety just that you typically have, you're worried about yourself, like, what am I going to do, what am I going to say, da, 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 da. But when it's anxiety or uncertainty about them and how they're making you feel, you're like,
mm-hmm,
are they going to stay with me, do they like me, so you're constantly worried
mm-hmm.
about them. And that's when you can kind of know that maybe things are off, because
Yeah.
yeah.
One of the symptoms of love addiction, I like to call it romance compulsion because it's almost compulsive thinking, is that you obsess over the other person and you assign an excessive amount of value over yourself to the other person. And the way
Yeah.
I have my clients look for that is I was like, I tell them, measure the volume of your thoughts.
Hmm.
Like if you're thinking 1,000 thoughts a day and
Yeah.
800 of them are about this person, something is wrong.
Yeah. And I know what you're saying, because it's like it shouldn't be worried. I don't know if that's I don't know if I could say 100% with certainty like something's wrong. I think that, I had something that I was gonna say to this point, about, because you're saying love addiction and
Well, yeah, the volume of and of course the volume of thoughts, not if when you're in love and everything is great, you're thinking
right,
about them. It's like if you are, like
right.
you said, anxious
You're
and
trying to fix
worried, if it's
something and
an
you're
yeah,
always
if
trying
it's
to,
right, if the volume of thoughts that are like very anxious and very worried and concerned and like, you know, uh wanting to do things and needing to like hold
mhm.
it together, if that or ruminating and analyzing something that happened that made you feel not good and try like that volume of thoughts is what I'm saying
One
isn't great.
one thing that really I've learned is, like, and this has just also come from my break, which is, what makes you think that you're so important to them that they will change for you? What makes you think that that you have enough power or control
Mm-hmm.
that you can change someone else, or you can make them love you, or you can
Mm-hmm.
you can change their mind, because no single person can do that. And so, because we're always thinking, oh, if I was just this enough, if I was just that enough, you know, the
Mm-hmm.
person who's gonna like you is gonna like you regardless of what you do. And I think that has also brought me some peace, in a
Yeah.
sense that, like, it was out of my control, and we know that it's out of our control, but we want to look for what we can control. If I just smiled a little bit bigger, if I just been a little bit nicer,
Mm-hmm.
maybe the guy really wanted, but, like, what makes you think that you're important enough? In a way, I think it's a little bit
Right.
of
And
an
how
ego.
easy is it to change? It's like,
Yeah,
listen, how easy has it been for you as an individual to change, much less expecting someone else to change? Change is
yeah,
not easy.
no, not. And
So unless,
I have
yeah.
a friend who, she's like in her third year of, he's changing, he got better,
Mm,
he's changing. I've seen him change, and I think she's more at this point addicted to, you know, the potential of him changing than she is to him at this moment. And so,
mm,
no matter how much he hurts her, she's still hanging on to the fact that he can change. And of course, we've given her the spiel: men don't change, da 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 da. But the fact that he's changed slightly is enough to hang on to the fact that he will
mm,
change. You know, and
yeah.
that's gonna be how she feels about her relationship until she decides to change. You know,
Yes.
until she decides to choose something else. And she has said to us, like, I am choosing this. You know, we're
Mm.
like, all right, don't tell us about it. Don't let me know, because I'm not gonna be here. And you know, she's understood that, because it's the third year. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
so.
That's rough. That's rough. Oh my gosh, this was such an excellent conversation.
Yay!
So
I'm
what advice do
glad.
you have for the listeners? Us,
Oh
us
yes.
40 plus or late 30s plus ladies. I
Hmm.
have some ladies who are in their 50s
Yeah.
and beyond who are dating. Tell us how to do it.
Oh my God. I feel like I have a couple of thoughts. I can't say for certain, because I know that I am not, I'm still learning every single day. Um, and I feel like one thing I've learned is, or I'm wanting to learn, is like, just practice filling your life up with love in all areas of life as well.
Mm,
So that way you can be more, comfortable, and you can, get better at love, and recognize the signs. That's why I love the good guy exercise, because it's like, what does it look like when a good guy loves someone else? What could
mm,
that, so that way you can take from the world, look at how loving relationships, like, focus on the love that's there and love that you have, and really water the love that you have. I also
mm.
feel like community is the biggest thing now. Like, who's the community? Because also the community is like a great place to find someone as well. So if you're living in a thriving community, how, and it will only help you either to feel
Yes.
confident enough to meet your person, or to meet that person through your community. And then also knowing that we're all. I love to watch videos of people getting rejected, especially hot-headed people, because it makes me feel better about myself. Like, if they're getting
Hot
rejected, it
people
must not be
getting
me.
rejected.
I love watching Love Is Blind, and you know what I mean, and Guys, Girls, like those kinds of shows, because then it's like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm not alone. It happens to everybody, you
Yeah,
know.
it does happen to everybody. I actually
Yeah,
just I'm doing a course for my clients called Don't Take It Personally, because I think that's the thing. We think it's about us, that
yeah,
there's something uniquely wrong with us if we get
yeah,
rejected.
yeah,
No,
for sure.
rejection is just part of being alive. If you're getting rejected, it means you're alive and doing well.
And there's no time that I've been rejected that I think I don't feel relieved after. Like, not
Mm,
necessarily right away, but later, looking back on it, the things I thought that were so compatible and perfect were just a shade of something else. And it's
yes.
always been for a reason.
Yes, yes, 100%. That's great advice. Thank you, Marie.
Oh, thank you.
You're
Yeah, we can
awesome.
talk about my favorite topic.
Yes, yes, absolutely. No, I think you've really created a process for yourself that I think works for you and will work for a lot of people. Like, really seeing it as a journey, like a transformational journey. I
Mm,
tell my clients all the time, like, dating is a container for your growth, for becoming that
yeah,
best version of yourself. And I'm not saying that so that, oh, I became the best version of myself, so I'm still single. No, no, no. You become the best version of yourself that can be with a partner.
Yeah.
And that's the whole
Yeah.
goal. Everything that happens along the way is like shaping you and shaping your thinking and taking you to that next level. And having your partner is the lagging result of
Mm-hmm.
having undergone all of that transformation. So well
And one more
done.
part about that is like, and I'm telling this to myself, I'm literally speaking to myself, like, open yourself up to life, like
Mm-hmm.
open yourself up to the rejection of life and to the fact that like life is lonely. Like let yourself be
Mm-hmm.
lonely, I
Yeah.
think is part and that sucks. I'm thinking someone who's single, so I'm not like being married over here being like no, but like literally like allow yourself to feel that loneliness. So you can know what it feels like to be there for yourself even when you're
Mm-hmm.
lonely.
Yeah, I do a little exercise with some of my clients who are having trouble with that. I'll be like, so if everyone on the planet disappeared
Mm-hmm.
and you had the whole planet to yourself and it was safe,
Yeah.
could you see yourself even enjoying that for a while? Of
Mm-hmm.
course, it would get lonely and we need people, blah, blah, but could you even see yourself saying, oh, it's all mine? Like
Mm-hmm.
even having that glimmer of like, oh, there's some things that I would do. I definitely want to do these things
Mm-hmm.
before I followed everyone else to the next planet, kind of
Right.
a thing. And I think the healthy place is to have some desire and some curiosity and some ability to see that as possibly a
Mm-hmm.
good thing for a while.
Mm-hmm. Or I don't know if I don't think anyone would ever in that situation be like, this is a good thing, but
Well,
can you be like,
I take them to that extreme if they're like unable to even
right?
visualize what it's like to be alone and to experience that.
I feel like the place that people actually feel the most lonely is when they're with people. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
I think if I was just by myself on an island by myself, I'd be like, okay, yeah, clearly this is lonely. But I think when you're around people and you're unable to connect with people or you know people
Mm,
and you're unable to reach out and be yourself, that I think is even harder. So I think
yeah.
like how can you be your own best? I mean, just kind of like your question, but like I think
Mm-hmm.
how can you be your own best friend even around other people? I think
Yeah.
is what helps me.
Yeah. And I see that. I think the reason why that sometimes doesn't work for some of my clients is because they sometimes will use other people to fill that hole. So then they'll serve other people and then they'll please other people and they'll try to adjust all of their expectations and their own life to meet other people. And so sometimes the ability to like just me and turn all of their thoughts towards themselves can be hard when they're around others.
What I mean is that's actually the point because it's so easy to you're going to obviously just think about yourself. You're going to be like, oh, I miss people, but you're going to be there for yourself when you have no other option. But when you are surrounded by people, can you just
Mm-hmm.
let yourself feel alone around other
Yeah.
people?
Yeah.
That I think is
Let
even
the
a harder
emotion come
part.
up and just sit with it and
Yeah.
don't try to change it. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
so good. That's the work.
Yeah.
That's the work. That's why I have a job as a life coach. It's
Yeah,
because,
absolutely.
you know, being in that space where we fully own ourselves and own our autonomy and our sovereignty and are able to focus our thoughts
Hmm.
on focus on our own thoughts and feelings. It's a journey.
Hmm.
You don't just flip a switch to get there.
That's very true.
Yeah.
That's
All right,
very
Marie, thank you so much.
Yes,
I know
thank
this is going to be
you.
the most adorable episode
Aw,
on the podcast.
love that.
So
Yay.
tell the listeners if they want to follow you and follow your journey, you are on a creative journey. Tell us about your project.
Yes.
You're doing this fun project.
Yes. Well, it's funny. I, think a lot about um, Black women existing in spaces. What are they allowed to do, not do? And so I'm currently uh, working with NYU to make this short film slash website called the Black Schoolgirl Project. It's about the experiences, the coming of age stories of young Black women in private high schools. How do they deal with racism, sexism, gender? How do they deal with love? How do they deal with
Mm,
friendships? How do they deal with, conflicts with, administration? And there's a lot of really amazing stories that I'm looking to put on this website. So if you're interested in following me in my journey, I do a lot of day in the life content. So I talk about what I'm sharing today, what I'm creating today. I'm going to try to talk more about dating on there because I feel like people like my dating stories. I look at so many. Definitely, I would check that out. It's Marie Tagbo. Y'all. Oh no, you don't know. Marietagbo on Instagram and YouTube and TikTok. And TikTok is where I post some longer stories. So
Yeah.
I would definitely check those out.
Yeah. And is the website up for the project?
It's not.
Not yet. Okay. But you will, if we
it.
follow you on Instagram, then we'll know when the film is ready. Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing your sunshine with my listeners.
Thank you.
I'll let you know when this comes up. Listeners, wasn't Marie like such a doll and so awesome with her dating advice? The girl has got it going on. And I'm not just saying that because I'm her mom. No, she really is an amazing, amazing young human. So I encourage you to follow her on Instagram and just follow her journey with the Black Schoolgirl Project. And thank you for your time and attention today. And we will see you next time.